All right, y'all, it is time to answer your questions and take your calls. I'm loving hearing your stories and loving hearing from you. We're going to kick this off by going to Spokane, Washington with Anna. Hey, Anna, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, what's going on? How can I help?
Oh, I hate to sound whiny, but
I like this start, Anna.
I'm a working mom. I work really hard.
Yeah.
I work full-time plus, and I manage the house. You know, I make sure we're getting ready for back to school here, and I make sure they got all of their supplies and their clothes, and make sure dinner gets on the table and food is in the fridge. And so I ask them to help out because I'm exhausted most of the time. And they do, well, sometimes they argue about it, both the kids and maybe the husband a little bit. And so when I delegate these chores, how do I not come back home, walk in the house and feel very frustrated? Either they didn't do it in a timely manner or they didn't do it completely. They love to do things like vacuum and then leave the vacuum in the middle of the floor, or they just don't finish their jobs. My son emptied all the garbages as I requested the other day, and then I come home and there's garbage around the garbage can.
Yeah.
So I hate to be whiny, but I'm kind of frustrated with my family that they don't care about our house maybe the same amount that I do.
Yeah. Anna, you and about every woman ever from the history of time. Let's start with that, okay?
Yeah.
So just know, I just want to validate that. Like, this is a normal, very, very common frustration in households. And I'm not trying to make generalizations. Yes, you have marriages where the husband's the neat freak and the wife is the messy one and whatever. This is not a male-female thing, but this is a very common struggle because women tend to be the one in the household that holds all the things together. The other problem with this dynamic is many times, not always, but many times, it is the wife mother that is doing all these things. And then because she either doesn't communicate at all or doesn't communicate effectively, she ends up feeling resentful when they don't know what to do and they don't do it. So I just want to start and kind of unpack this for a second. Tell me about your family dynamic. Are you married and what are the ages of your kids?
Yeah, I'm married 25 years now. We just celebrated, and my kids are now 17 and 14.
Okay.
Having chores is not new to them. I went back to work when they started school and started them right away learning how to run their own laundry from beginning to end. So I would have the daily chores for them, like they would help with the dishes at the end of the day. And then they would also, at the end of the week, they would do their laundry. And when they're home in the summer, I ask them to do one other thing, like, you know, the windows are real streaky. Could you get those? Could you clean those? You know, I give them 5 or 10 minutes extra hours. And for the number of hours they play other things like electronics. Right. You would think so. And my husband does try to help out. It's really actually helped me to understand our personality differences a little bit because he just doesn't care how things look like I do. Right. So he thinks I should be pleased that he swept all of the dog hair up off the floor. But when I walk in the door, all I see is that he left the pile of dog hair right in front of the garbage can. You know, and I'm trying, I tell him I fight it. And the first thing I think is I should be so thankful he swept. Right. But it's just really hard for me to come home. And then my son is like, well, I made brownies today. It's like, well, okay, but you're sitting down playing electronics now and you've left all of the brownie dishes. Right.
Okay. Here's the thing, Anna. I hear you and I totally get it. I've had very similar conversations with my family. We've all been there. So let me give you a tip on a communication tip, okay? And this is one thing that may help. It's not going to be a switch that you flip. It's not going to fix it overnight. But if you can start to speak to the problem on this level, I think it might be more effective in letting them know what you need and being more specific and so on. So let me give you an example. When I talk to my family, let's use an example with Matt and I, because we have certainly had these conversations. Every couple ever has, by the way. So Matt and I, when we talk about this, I don't just talk about, let's use your example of the dog hair, okay? I don't just talk about the dog hair. Will you sweep the dog hair? I talk about the why behind sweeping the dog hair. So here in your example, it might look something like this. Now, you make it your own, Anna. So you talk about this in a way that is your personality, your communication style. So don't feel like it has to be like this. But here's how I do it, for example. I'll be like, hey, Matt, you work full time and I work full time. So we're both putting in hours at a full-time job. So I think it's fair that what's done in the house should be split evenly too. Do you agree? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I do these things, and the list is long, like I'm sure yours is, Anna. Could you do these things? And the reason I need you to do these things is because we don't like to walk in dog hair. It gets on our clothes, and that I don't like going to work with dog hair on my clothes. Do you? No, I don't either. No, I don't know. That's all we need to sweep it up. And the whole point of you sweeping the dog hair for me is so that I don't have to do that work because I'm doing these things. So it would really be awesome if you could do the entire job. And that means sweeping it and throwing it away so I never see it. And oh, by the way, putting the broom away so I never see it. Because see, if you leave a pile of dog hair, or you tell your adult sons, if you leave the vacuum in the middle of the floor, you didn't actually finish the job. So I still have to take part of that job. But I already have my own jobs over here. So I need you to finish the job. Whatever the job is, I need you to finish it, start to finish, so that I never have to touch it. Can you do that? And so I know this sounds almost like you're talking to a child, and you don't have to sound condescending. It's just in the effort to be insanely clear. Because what happens all the time, Anna, and I have been guilty of this, I know so many people that have, but it is a trend with women, is we say to our husbands, will you help more? And they're like, yes, babe, yes. Yes, I want to help you. I am with you. And they mean it. They're in it. And they do one thing that was helpful, and we had a different idea in our head. We had in our head they were going to do 15 things, including folding all the laundry, but we didn't tell them that. And they swept the dog hair, and they felt like, well, I am helping. Every conversation I've ever had with my husband, Matt, never does he say, I'm not helping at all. You're totally right. He's like, I am helping. We're somehow missing each other in our communication. So I would just advise you to begin to talk about the why. The why of the help is because you're working full time and you're already doing these things. So they're working, and your teenage sons, there's going to need to be some consequences there, Anna. They don't get to play video games if they're leaving the vacuum in the middle of the floor. They don't get to. They're still living in your household. You're still in charge here. And so there needs to be some consequences for them. Obviously, you don't relate to your husband like that. That would not be good for relationship building whatsoever. But you can appeal to the why. You can appeal to the why. You can appeal to the motivation behind it. Like, hey, when you do a job halfway, I still have to do it. But the whole point of you doing it is so I don't have to do it. Can you do it completely? Again, the why. Why do we even sweep the floor? Well, I don't want to walk through dog hair sticking to my feet. I don't want to go to work with dog hair on my clothes. Do you? Appeal to the why. And I think if you can appeal there, they will meet you there. You will find common ground there. You both agree things should be fair. You both agree you don't want to go to work with dog hair on your clothes. You both agree that the job should be done, because if not, they didn't really do it at all. A job half done is still not done. And so when you begin to communicate with unbelievable clarity, but again, appealing to the common ground of the motivation, hopefully that will bring more clarity to the relationship. And they may speak up and say, you know what? Truth is, I hate doing dog hair. Can I do something different? You're like, cool, yeah, I'll do dog hair. Would you do this then? It is finding common ground and finding compromise. Let's be honest, no one in the house wants to sweep dog hair, Anna. Nobody. You don't, they don't, the kids don't, nobody does, but it has to be done. So you just, and you, one of the greatest pieces of advice I've ever gotten in marriage, and I would advise this to you, maybe you've heard it before. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see what I mean here. Often in marriage, we see the problem between us and our spouse, us and our family. So it becomes this wedge between us. And we can't get to each other because of that problem. Set the problem aside and say, hey, me and you, we're on the same team. We're going to tackle this problem together. Do that. Set the problem aside, the household responsibilities, the dog hair, whatever, aside and go, hey, help me solve this because I'm already maxed out. How can we solve this together so that everything gets done? And maybe they want to do different chores and you're fine with that. But it's a common struggle. I just want you to know you're not alone and you're doing great. Just appeal to the deeper motivations and be super clear in your communication, and hopefully it will improve over time. Over time being the key. Great question. Thanks for calling, Anna.